Yay, we did it, right? We did it. Are we doing it?
I think we're doing it.
It's happening. All right.
Yeah.
Well, merriest of Christmas to all of you who celebrate. Isn't that Hanukkah right around now?
Now.
Doesn't it start today too?
Today.
Actual
Okay, thanks, you guys.
Yes.
I appreciate
It is
that.
one of those years where they coincide together.
Okay, I thought so. Happy Hanukkah out there to everyone who celebrates that, and any other holidays that I'm not currently aware of today, because I'm just lucky I made it to the live stream. So let's just be happy with that.
Hooray.
Is Kwanzaa one of them? Kwanzaa? I don't know. I always hear about that one around this time of year.
No, I've never met a human being who legitimately celebrates Kwanzaa, so I don't know.
Yeah, I've only ever seen it on TV. Yeah.
My birthday.
Yeah. You said it's Lorna, you said it's on your birthday? Oh, today is your birthday. I told you it was yesterday. Tomorrow. Which one? Lorna. Bueller. Hello?
Bueller.
Lorna.
Testing 1, 2, 3.
Yeah, we can hear you. You guys hear?
ABBEY'S?
Yes?
Yes.
Okay.
No.
Abby is breaking up for me on my end.
Not for me.
Okay, so I'm good for you guys. Okay.
When the stream started, though, it kicked my microphone off, and I had to reconnect it. So maybe that's what's happening to Lorna right now.
Okay.
She may have to just reconnect her stuff.
Her birthday is either yesterday, today, or tomorrow. I cannot remember one.
Tomorrow.
Wow.
Oh.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Okay.
That was
Well, yeah, that was better. Happy birthday in advance.
Happy birthday.
Yeah. Exciting. Hi, everybody out there. Thanks for joining us today. If you're joining us, if you left your wonderful families or your whatever you're doing to be with us, we appreciate that. Let us know where you're listening from or talking or whatever. And if you don't already know, my name is Abby Quinn, and I'm a Sumerian astrologer or a Mesopotamian astrologer, however you want to do that. I don't consider myself a Babylonian astrologer because that's way too complex, and I'm much more of a savage. All of my information is going to be in the video description, along with Nikki's, Lorna's, and Friar Pesel's. But you can find my stuff at SumerianAstrology.com. While you're there, you can learn ancient astrology. You can also join our free meditation support group, which is every Sunday from 11 to usually 1 p.m. I think once I had to jump off like a half hour early, but usually 1 p.m. And that's totally free. We may or may not talk about meditation, just depending on what's going on. But it is 100% a support group. So if you need any support with any of your challenges in life, you're definitely welcome to join us on there. And that is free. You can also learn Sumerian on my website. That is probably the most intense Sumerian language course you're going to find outside of actually going to university. But if you learn Sumerian at university, you're going to have to learn Akkadian and a whole bunch of stuff in between. So definitely check that out too. All right. First, I'm going to pass this off probably to Friar. I'm going to make him go next and introduce himself, then Nikki. Next. And then we're going to make Lorna confess all of her deepest, darkest secrets here on the internet where there is no forgetting. So, Friar, you want to take it away?
I do. I'm taking it. I'm sticking it in the bag and I'm running with it because basically I am Black Pete today. Check it out. Where are we at? December 25th. What does that leave you? It leaves you just a few days to take advantage of Marduk 50. Now, someone actually was bold enough to take advantage. Are you going to let that be the only person? Only person?
Yeah, it is a competition. You now have to beat this other person. The mystery
right. I've turned self-help into a competition now because it's the American way. And I am very much hoping that some folks take advantage of this vanishing discount. Just go to my website, friarpesel.wordpress.com, or you can contact me directly at friarpesel@gmail.com. And this segment was sponsored by Wayland Lutani.
Okay.
Sorry, go ahead.
Who wants to give you a big hug on the face? All right.
Yeah.
All right.
That's it. But I'm one last thing. This thing vanishes at the end of the year, and I'm gonna tell you this: 50% off is never happening again.
You're like, no, this was too good of a deal. We're
It's
not
too good
doing
of a
this
deal.
ever again.
There
I
may
love
be
it.
others, but 50 is like, this is for 2024 because what a year, huh? Hmm?
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. It has been quite a year. Oof. I'm glad it's almost over.
Speaking of, Nikki, your turn.
Well, I'm Nikki. I do astrology readings. My email is the best way to get a hold of me. Just shoot me an email.
Did I spell it right? Revolutionist. Is that right?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
So I had to look at my phone. Yeah. So by day, I work with cannabis. I also work. I'm also sort of a part-time stylist, so I do a lot of different things. I stay pretty busy. So yeah. Anyway, I still have time for readings all the time. So send me a link. Send me an email.
You should.
Yeah, you could anytime. You could
Yeah.
even just send me an email and say hi. Hey.
Right. You could beat out the other people because it is a competition.
Well, yeah. But the best way to talk to me is just like on the meditation calls too. I usually join those. They're really awesome. I do have to definitely push the meditation calls. You meet a lot of new people, a lot of cool people. You learn a lot of different things. It's a mixed bag. We don't meditate. Okay, but we do talk about it, and we do talk about a lot of other weird things. And there are a lot of weird things going on in the world right now. And so yeah, you gotta join us there too. So I'm rambling. Yeah.
It's good.
Blue Bedouin is joining us from Egypt while cutting a salad. So thank you.
Nice.
Thank you for that. Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah, we should do a group trip, you guys. Let's
should.
plan it.
Yes.
Yeah. Let's do it.
To New Jersey.
Go to Egypt. No, to Egypt.
Oh.
To New Jersey.
Sorry.
Go to Turkey.
Turkey. Yeah, Turkey too, but
Yeah, I don't know.
I've already been to Turkey, so I gotta, I'm gonna go,
Yes.
Yeah, Egypt would be cool. I'd like to see the Sphinx. Do you guys like ever look at the Sphinx and like just think, what did they do to that poor head on that thing?
That poor lion. Yeah.
It looks like a cat, and it has a tiny little people head. It's like, oh my god, who ruined that thing?
Well,
somebody was like, my face belongs up there.
I read Robert Schoch's, what's that book called? Or Mysteries of the Sphinx. And he and what's the other guy? Was it John Anthony West? Maybe. They were talking about, like, if you ask the people for generations who've lived in the region, it goes way, way back. They say that it used to be the head of a lioness, and that would probably account for why the current head is so tiny, because somebody jacked it up. So yeah, that's probably the case. It's a really good book, you guys. He actually, my only complaint with it is that he talks more about the potential. He talks about like the CME, potentially the cause of the end of the last ice age and stuff, and he goes more into that as opposed to the actual origins and mysteries of the Sphinx. So yeah, but it's still really good. Definitely recommend it out there. All right, Lorna, why don't you, if you're comfortable, tell us a little bit about yourself and how you got to this point, and a little bit about what you do and that type of thing.
Okay. Well, thank you for having me. This is fun. Merry Christmas and Happy Hanukkah. Currently, I tutor English online for people who are learning English as another language. Recently, I just spent a little time in Spain through a cultural exchange program, tutoring English at 2 different schools. And one was age 3 to 12, and the other was age 3 to 15. And that was a lot of fun. As a kid, I was a language nerd and loved all sorts of different languages and loved the mystical arts. I would say from birth to age 7, I had the family action adventure, G-rated, with a lot of fun and the old yeller cry moments. grandparents passed from a car accident, and my dad's youngest siblings were in the vehicle with them, and they incurred some broken backs and thought they were never going to be able to walk again. And my mom and dad took them and went to Montana and bought a ranch in Montana. My dad got emergency leave from the Air Force, and we lived without power and running water for 2 years on a ranch in Montana. And I just thought it was the greatest adventure. And
did you guys have a well? Did you have to draw water from the well?
At our first place, we rented a place while we were building. In the first place, it had water out of the side of a mountain, and we would put water on our horses and haul water. And then our second place that we rented, that was just down the road from our ranch, it had a well in it. And it did have an outhouse, so it was fancy schmancy. So for me, I grew up with all these animals around me. My mom and dad, that was like their dream, to have a horse ranch. My mom was a country girl. My dad was a city boy from Seattle, but his dad was from Montana. And so that had been the dream. And then with the passing of his parents, that's what they used their inheritance money for. For my dad's youngest siblings, it was torture. They were city boys from Seattle who had all of the wonderful things of the 60s that were all of a sudden put back in time with no power, no electricity, no TV in Montana. So for them, those 2 years without power was torture. But I went from being the firstborn only child to being the youngest, because my uncles were more like siblings, like big brothers to me. And then my aunts would visit, and aunts and uncles on both sides. Both my parents have huge families. So that first 7 years, when I look back on that time, a lot of magical things. I had a big imagination, always felt like I had a connection to the spirit realm. I was supposedly had a great imagination, out dancing with angels and fairies in the woods. Fairies, we had a conversation on one of the talks about the fairies and how they're not always so nice. So that's
how they kidnap your children, and that's why
Oh my gosh.
yeah, fairies do that.
Oh, come on.
Wiccan.
I think that's made up. Like somebody made
It's
up.
not made up, Nikki. No, stop.
No.
It's not. In every
No.
culture around the world, they do not mess around with fairies, because they'll steal your children, they'll steal your pets, they'll steal you. Sometimes they bring you back, but it's no joke. That's dead serious. There's still people going missing in the woods like all the time, and so David, sorry, Lorna, not to cut you off, but like I need to like.
You're passionate, yeah. Let me.
You're explaining why my mom was terrified when I would use the word fairy. She's like, no.
It's no joke. David Plaitis, he has a series called Missing 411. He's a retired law enforcement officer. He originally started looking into like Bigfoot. He was, was trying to like not like find a Bigfoot, but he was just interested in the topic. And he'd go to these conferences, and these forest rangers would come to him, and they're like, look, dude, you gotta, something crazy is going on. These people will go missing. We bring in the tracker dogs. Nobody can find them. They don't pick up a scent. And then we'll find the bodies of these people in weird situations. Sometimes they'll find kids, and they're like 20 miles away from where they disappeared, and and they won't have scratches all over them, and it's like something just picked them up and dropped them off. And then some people, they'll find like a body, or they'll find parts of their body, but then they'll find their clothes either on backwards, or like somebody put their clothes back on but didn't know what they were doing. They're usually missing their shoes, which we find in like fairy lore across the world. Some of the people, like, they'll find them later in places that were heavily searched, and that there's no reason why they shouldn't have found their bodies and stuff. It's bizarre. It's crazy. Now, some of the stories, he's got like a handful of books. They're really thick. They're pretty pricey. He sells them on his website, but I mean, he just researches nonstop, so it's worth supporting. But like anybody out there who's interested, it's called Missing 411, and he primarily focuses on the United States, but he's starting to branch off into other countries too. But while some of it they do think is like Bigfoot sightings, because people will see a child being carried off by a bear that's walking on two legs, which the bears don't do that too often.
Right.
Some of them, like some of the people who have come back, they've said, like, I heard music, I heard somebody calling my name, there were these strange lights, and I went and found them, and the next thing I know, I'm like, 20 miles somewhere else. The one that really freaks me out, and I don't think I would attribute this to fairies, but I think this guy was from Michigan. I think he was out on like Lake St. Clair or Lake Huron. I'm not 100% sure. But they followed his tracks and like out onto the ice and the snow. And it was snowy, so like they could see the tracks, and he just was gone. There wasn't a hole in the ice. There was no place where he could have gone, but the tracks are gone. And this happens all the time. Like they'll follow this somebody's tracks in the snow and they just disappear. Well, they found this guy 6 months later or something like that. In California, he was wearing different clothes. He has no idea how he got there, where he was, and like to this day he won't talk about it. But like people just straight up like vanish. But if you talk to people in like Southeast Asia, they're very clear that there's these woodland spirits that just straight up snatch people. So I don't be messing around with the fairies. I'm very respectful, and I try to teach my child to be respectful in the woods too. But Blue Bedouin said fairies are just jinn with a charm to lure people in. Yeah, I do think, I think that's very probable. Yes, I think that we could lump them all into the same category. Never got a good feeling from them for sure. All right, I'll shut up. Lorna, continue. So no electricity, no water.
Yeah.
I think I heard you say you lived on Skinwalker Ranch. I'm not 100% sure, but that's what I'm imagining.
Lived on what? What was the last part?
Skinwalker Ranch. That's what I'm just imagining now. That's where you were.
No. For me, there wasn't anything scary during that time frame of my life, but there was a lot of magical type stuff that was attributed by my grandparents as me just having a wonderful imagination. But I remember singing out in the woods and talking to angels and seeing little creatures. And I was a tomboy in frills and was constantly in trouble with my dad because I was wearing skirts out in the woods. And my comeback would be that the fairies were all dressed in frilly stuff. So why couldn't I be? And then that would be when my mom would come in with, being nice to the fairies. But I had just this sense of just always having company, even though I was by myself a lot. And I was teaching myself how to read. I didn't know until I was an adult that I had dyslexia because I had such a good memory. I was memorizing words. So I learned to read by memory, by memorizing sight reading. And so I was allowed to go to the school as a 3-room schoolhouse here in Montana. And kindergarten through 3rd grade was in one room. And that was the room I was allowed to join when I was 4. So I was allowed to go early because I was already reading and there's not a lot for me to do in the daytime. And I think it was kind of a way for my parents to keep me occupied. But that time of my life was really beautiful and wonderful. And I had the gift of healing, primarily with the animals on the ranch and our neighbors' animals. When an animal would get wounded, I would lay my hands on the animal and pray for the animal. And sometimes the animal would be healed within an hour. So I had this just natural gift of healing. So I had a very eclectic family spiritually, and I was allowed to seek spiritually. And my dad was not religious at all. His mom was a minister, was one of the first ordained ministers in her church. And his dad was kind of Native American upbringing. And then my mom's brothers were into a lot of esoteric, mystical type things. So I was allowed to read their books. And then my mom's cousins were Mormon, and they were
that's a big difference. Yeah.
And then on my dad's side of the family, on his dad's side of the family, were Catholics. So I was exposed even in Montana to a lot of different spiritual faiths and spiritual things. And both of my parents were very psychic. At that time in my life, I would be seen with people around me, and people didn't see them as spirits. And it happened even, and it still happens to me as an adult. Somebody will say, well, who was your friend? Not thinking there was a ghost or anything by me, but that there was an actual human being standing next to me. And I've had that happen my entire life. It's like there's always been people hanging out with me, or people show up and other people will see them that aren't necessarily tuned in. So I was allowed to explore both my academics and spiritual interests. And then I'd like to say from 7 to 14, I had the adventure, went from dipping in and out of adventure and dipping in and out of a horror movie. My life took a very dark turn, complete with rape and my parents' divorce and being abducted and being rescued by bikers and having post-traumatic dreams that were horrible, and dreams that were also prophetic. And so I had a gift of, having prophetic dreams, but I was also having the post-traumatic dreams. And so I tried to stay awake a lot. And then when you try to stay awake, you have sleep deprivation and you get a little kooky and you get more emotional. My mom was diagnosed with cancer and told that she had 6 months to live. My mom is still with us. She's 78. So she survived that diagnosis. She's won the cancer fight probably, I'd say, at least 10 times. She's had different types
Oh,
of
goodness.
cancer.
Okay.
I've never had cancer, but she's had it many times. But when she was diagnosed with cancer was right after myself and a little boy and a little girl had been abducted from a park when she was performing. She was in a cover band. And right after that, it was like 3 months after that situation happened is when she was diagnosed with cancer. And my parents were already divorced. My dad was remarried, and I was shipped off to live with relatives, my brother and my sister and I, because my mom didn't want us watching her die. And so I was dealing with all of the emotions from what had happened to me, and I just started blocking things out. So I started blacking out and losing periods of time. And my dad and stepmom took me to the doctor, and they thought that I was having blood sugar issues, and they started making me diet and blah blah blah. It was, like I said, it was probably the hardest time of my life. And I'd say that I signed up for the advanced course in forgiveness. And so my search in the church and in mystical sciences grew at that time. And I joined several different churches. I had a friend that was Jewish, so I actually even went to the synagogue, just really looking and hungry. I tried to get myself counseling to help. I knew I needed help to deal with the trauma from the abduction, and just really wasn't getting good help. A lot of the information I got was, that I'd done something in a past life to deserve all of this crap. And so it gave me a warped view on reincarnation. And then people would pray for you in the church, but it was more like a condemnation thing. And then people, you're possessed. And so this is why this happened. The demons.
Yeah, that one makes me mad. I get tired of that.
Yeah. So it went along this crazy path. I was part of the Graham evangelism teams.
Like Billy Graham?
Yep.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah. And then because of the gift of healing, I was constantly trying to find out why I had that gift of healing. And the closest that I could find within the church, I started researching for healers. And Oral Roberts University had both a medical program, which I wanted to be a doctor, and they also believed in laying on of hands and instant manifestation and spiritual healing. So I went to Oral Roberts University and started doing pre-med, and was also trying to do the counseling thing. And that really began kind of my religious training and teaching. But I had a knack for being in the wrong place at the right time. I can't tell you how many times I walked in on people having sex when you weren't supposed to be having sex.
Like at work?
At the church.
Oh,
Like,
okay.
oh, and I would,
Sorry, I was not expecting that at all. Yeah, that's funny. Wow. Like, what do you do?
Yeah.
Like, oh.
exactly.
I've
And-
never walked in on that at church for sure.
I never had that
yeah,
problem,
100%.
but wow, that's cool.
Yeah,
Well,
it's-
not
it's
cool, I
amazing
guess.
that people find that
So
mess
you,
around.
so you walked in on me? What's the deal?
Not you. I'm not sure what you look like.
That was
Friar.
you.
Aw, that makes me sad because the religion has really turned sex into such a shameful act, and when you suppress and hide things, it just comes out in the most craziest ways. Like we've seen
Right.
it.
And then from my being sexually abused, and then from the abduction, we were lured away by women. So women were the ones that lured us away. And I knew when that happened, it was myself, another little boy and girl, and I knew not to go, and I tried to talk them into not going. And
How
I
old were
went
you?
to protect them around 10 years old.
Okay.
So I think that it was in the summertime, and it was before my mom got diagnosed with cancer. So I think it's like I was 9 or 10 when that happened. But I was always like mothering people when I was 5. I just had that thing where I felt responsible for other kids and watching out for anybody that was younger than me. But because of that, I trusted women less than I trusted men, because the women that lured us away were like June Cleaver types. And at that time, bikers were considered rough and scary, in the 60s. They didn't have, it wasn't, people who had tattoos weren't cool in the 60s. They were scary and tough and rough. I owe my life to bikers. Like, we were rescued. And so I had more of a trust for men than I did for women, even with all of that stuff going on. But walking in, I'm thinking, I'm trying to deal with all the anger of what happened to me, and the fire insurance from the Holy Rollers and the very Pentecostal and also Baptist, that it did to me kind of thing, helped me to deal with the anger, because I had this split of, I'm so angry, but I feel like it's wrong to be angry and hurt somebody. So it went back and forth. But
Yeah, understandably.
I
That's
tried
a
to
lot
channel a
to
lot
take
of that.
in. Yeah.
Yeah,
Oh,
for sure.
What was that?
Yeah. Oh, I was just saying, like, understandably, that's like a lot to take in. Growing up. Did we lose her? Oh no. She'll be back. She'll be back.
Yeah, I think her connection's not the greatest.
Yeah, it just slowed down. I actually spent an entire summer with a biker gang. And they are pretty good people. So like I had a pretty crazy upbringing. And I partied a lot. I was kind of a little nomad. And I too ran into situations like Lorna. And I was really lucky to have a lot of cool people looking out for me. So, all right, you're back. You're back. Oh, awesome.
Lorna,
Yeah.
Blue Bedouin asked what your life path number in numerology is. You know.
It's a 5.
Okay, that's where my I know the number 5, and that's literally the end of my
Yeah, that's
numerology knowledge.
Oh, is that when we break down our like birthday and like we find out like what number we are? Is that it? Is that like is that the
Yeah, probably
special?
something. Different
There's
numerologists do it different ways, so I don't know. It's hard to say.
some of them add up every day and then break it down to its lowest form. And you don't break down the 11 or the 22. Those are master numbers. So if you get, if the lowest number is an 11, or if it's a 22 or a 33, you don't break those down. But the rest of them, you break it down to its lowest form. So you just keep reducing it until it gets to that point.
Oh my God, I have to do it again now.
If there's any numerologists out there, anybody knows anything about anything, let us know what 5s are, I guess.
5s are the number in the Destiny card system, which is what I use to do readings, which is Robert Camp brought the Destiny card book from only Richmond, who was the Order of the Magi. That was the first Magi that brought the Mystic Test book, the little book of 7 Thunders, publicly. In that particular system, the 5 is the number of man. So we have 5 fingers and toes on each hand. You start with the aces are 1s, and you go from the ace up to the King of Hearts in the deck. So do you want me to talk about that, or I can hold off and tell you a little bit more about that? But
well,
I can tell you a little bit of about the Destiny cards, little book of 7 Thunders. But
I was
don't know if
actually
you can go
hoping
direction or not.
that you might be willing to share your near-death experience with us if you're comfortable with it. It might be too personal, in which case don't worry about it. But that's a topic that's very fascinating to me. So
Okay.
yeah.
Absolutely. And leading into, I think probably what you asked me to invite, what prompted you to invite me to the chat when we were talking about the rites of passage and the experience that I went through with them. And that was why I brought up, I contemplated whether or not to bring up the sexual abuse and trauma and stuff that happened. But I brought it up because it plays into what happened with my near-death experience and what happened with the rites of passage. Just kind of giving you that foundation of the mess that I was in. And in my 20s, my memory started going. So I told you I had a really good memory as a kid, and I started losing my memory and not being able to have as quick as recall as I had when I was in school. And I was hunting for, different ways to get my memory better. I was looking at different alternative methods for health-wise. And I worked as a CNA for hospice. So that's a certified nurse's aide. I worked with hospice with people dying, and also worked as a physical therapy aide while I was going to school and had my kids. So I'm doing all this hunting and searching and to try to figure out my memory. And that was when I came across the Destiny card system and was at first exposed to it. And what struck me is that all of a sudden I didn't have to think about it. I could remember the different energies of the different cards. And that was a first for me. And I remember going into a bookstore and going, I'm too fucked up to fix. Just looking at all of the self-help stuff and dealing with all of the emotions that I dealt with. And at that point in my life, my husband was super into the end times prophecy. And I had studied ancient Israel from a messianic rabbi via book order. So I knew a lot about ancient Israel. So I did a book order course. They didn't have the internet courses at that point. So it was, I had to send in my homework over the mail, and I had to record things on a tape recorder for him on some of the things, and answer some of the questions so that he knew that I was answering them. But in the midst of everything, I was pregnant with my daughter, and I was exploring the information that was in the Destiny card system. And I'm a 5 of Hearts in that system, which is his first book. It wasn't very positive, and it was like the emotional adventures, the positive part of it, and kind of cursed emotionally was how I read it, the low end of it. And I'm pregnant with my daughter, and my memory is going blitz on me, which later I come to find out it was from bleeding so much. It was affecting my memory from having such heavy periods. And my daughter was very, very big. All of my babies were really big, and my daughter was over 10 pounds. And they were concerned about me having her vaginally. And so they induced labor early. And when they induced labor early, I started having the pit contractions, and they were very unnatural. And compared to other deliveries that I have with my kids, it was, my body wasn't flowing with the labor. I wasn't ready to have her. Even though she was so big, she wasn't full term, and my body just wasn't ready to deliver. And the placenta pulled away, and I started hemorrhaging. So they stopped the pit, and they almost did an emergency C-section. And I remember the doctor coming in and sending my husband home and saying, that they were going to keep me under observation. And as long as the baby wasn't having problems, they weren't going to take me in for a C-section. And I fell asleep, and I dreamed that I died, and it freaked me out. And it was at a Catholic hospital. It was where I worked. And so I asked one of the nurses to pray with me, and I told her, and I was just really emotional about the whole thing. And I remember her praying with me, and then my husband was there, and they checked to see how dilated I was, and I was fully dilated. And the nurse got this look on her face, and I knew something was wrong by the look on her face. And my husband told me later that when she had pulled back the sheet to do the check, that there was blood everywhere, and part of my placenta was sitting there on the sheets. So she knew that she needed to get things taken care of, but they didn't want me panicking. And as they were delivering her, my heart stopped, and I had an out-of-body experience watching them work on me. And then it went from me watching them work on me and watching my husband, and my son was there, and there was a lady that was my friend that was there with my oldest son to be there part of the delivery. And they pulled them out while they started working on me. And then everything just went completely black. And I had the most wonderful feeling, like I was in the womb or in space. I was just blanketed in love. I never felt anything that I can even come close to describing it in this plane. And there was a voice that I started talking to, the language that I used at the time. I was 30, by the way, on my Saturn return when all this happened. But the voice that I heard, I started asking all of the spiritual questions that I have been asking my whole life. And I was having a dialogue, And a lot of the questions that I asked, I was told that I would find out later, that I wasn't at the place that I would understand them at this point. I asked about my memory, and I was told that it was health related, and that I would find the answers to that as well, and that I had to work on my mind and getting control over my mind and the thoughts and the tapes that were playing in my brain. I asked about scriptures about Jesus, Yeshua HaMashiach, and whether he really walked the earth, or whether it was just metaphorical.
Would they tell you?
I was told yes. Yes.
Okay.
And I was told that the scripture where it says that he was the firstborn among the brethren, that he was explaining that he was an example, that the kingdom of heaven was within us, and that we were supposed to follow his example of how to reach that connection to God and to the divine.
So more the Gnostic view.
Yes, very, very. And I had, at this point, I hadn't heard that perspective. And then I had questions about things like Reiki and energy work and the Kabbalah. And I was told that all of the ancient languages had an energy about them, and they had a musical sound to them when they were used in a specific way, and that there was power in the ancient languages, and there were codes within codes within codes, and that you would, I have to remember how it was articulated to me. Was your interpretation of something was influenced by your own energy. So you would interact with that ancient knowledge and you would get what you needed. And so you had to be careful not to try to interpret for somebody else, because their need and what they needed would what was the word?
Well, that makes a lot of sense, that something would activate other things inside of somebody else that wouldn't for another person. I mean, there's a lot of people who connect to things that I would never ever connect to.
Yeah,
but it makes them feel really good, and they're spiritual people too. So I mean, it's right for them. And it might not be right for the next person.
The foundation of that was, my question on the base of that was, why would someone read the New Testament and one person sees love and God is love and to love your neighbor, and another person would see to persecute somebody and to kill somebody? So that was the basis of where some of those questions was coming from for me. It just didn't make sense why there were so many different interpretations and so many different sects just within Christianity. That, why was that? Why were there so many different interpretations? And I knew a little bit, like I knew with the Talmud that, anciently they didn't study it by themselves. Like you were supposed to study it with somebody so that you would talk back and forth and debate things and get the understanding for yourself. And so that's where a lot of those questions came from. And I was from a family that was so eclectic in beliefs that everybody was right and everybody else was going to hell if they didn't follow this exact path. And then my mom was Wiccan. So I really had the mix of different beliefs. And those questions came in. And I knew a little bit about the Akkadian calendar, because my uncle was into archaeology and geology, and he had some wonderful books. And so I was exposed to the astronomy and the True Sky Astrology. I knew about that. I knew pieces of it. And so some of those were the questions that I asked. A lot of the things.
Wait. You asked about astrology?
No, I didn't ask about astrology. I asked about, at that point, I didn't believe astrology.
Oh,
I
okay.
have
All right, that's fair.
in the tropical. Well, I had done astrology as a kid using the ephemeris books that my mom and uncle had, and I have a grand trine. So, I have in the tropical system, I am Capricorn with Aquarius ascendant and a stellium in Aquarius, and then I have this grand trine, and I didn't relate it. So I was just like, I'm not a Capricorn. I don't relate to that mythology. I don't relate to the cold, no energy Aquarius.
Nobody does.
I didn't understand enough. Is that me? Is that coming on my end?
What? What is it? I don't hear it.
What was your question, Abby?
I said, no, nobody does. Nobody relates to the Capricorn stuff. Test, 3, 2, Bueller.
I can't.
Yeah, the cold Aquarian stuff too has got to end. That whole like Aquariuses are just so like cold and they don't have any feelings, and
That's crazy.
that's
crazy to me.
that I literally hear that come out of astrologers' mouths, and I'm like, well, not anybody we know actually, but I'm like, dude, have you met anybody who's an Aquarius? Like, have you talked to anybody?
Well,
lately?
that's the same thing with
Like,
Capricorns. Like, do you know any
yeah.
Capricorns? Because they're not anything like you described them. I think I met one person ever who kind of came off a little bit like she was just a hard worker, and she, wasn't put a lot of focus on her career.
Yeah.
But it was like coming from a place that, like, she had a job where she was directly helping people in need. I mean, why wouldn't you be passionate about that, right? So yeah, like there's so much nonsense in the current classical meanings.
Yeah, absolutely.
Sorry, did we interrupt? Oh, Lorna was having technical difficulties.
No, I would rather have a discourse and a conversation about it. So yes, my family, I had a lot of family that were really into astrology. My mom had the Linda Goodman books, and I had access to them. But when I would look at it for my own life, I just didn't relate to anything that was being said in there. So it wasn't a question. The questions that I had were more about religion and more about my own emotional state of mind and being able to heal from what I had been through. And so
can I ask before you keep going, how long did it feel like you were in the near-death experience place that you were? Like, did it feel like it was a long time?
Yes, it felt, for me, it felt like it was at least an hour, if not 2 hours. And it was, minutes. Like,
okay.
They brought me in and out. I was told, my husband said that they had to start my heart more than once. So I came in and out a couple of times where they had to bring me back a couple of times. But I don't remember once I was watching them work on my body and I went and everything went black. Like that was one of the things, you hear about the light. I never saw any light. But, I was told, it was a part of, could be part of your imagination and whatnot. But for me, the information that was given to me, a lot of it I'd never come in contact, even though I read quite a bit. I hadn't come in contact. I hadn't heard of different people. And it was after that I started learning about a lot of the like Zachariah Sitchin and weird X-Files stuff. Like that was the Zachariah Sitchin. Like there was an episode on X-Files that referred to him, that talked about the spaceships and things like that. That was the first time that I got the hint about the Sumerian possibility of astrology. And then I started reading and it was like, well, this is just a book. This isn't what I'm looking for. And so I really, in that regard, most of my questions were more about emotional and how to heal and how to love people. I had such a strong desire to be a healer and to love people. And when all of that came down, I was contemplating doing massage therapy, but I didn't know if I could do that or not, because I didn't know if I could handle people touching me. Like, I really didn't think I was going to be able to go to massage school and deal with people touching me.
Yeah, I couldn't even have considered it. There's no way. No way.
I did consider it, but I get so incredibly drained. Spending an hour or 2 hours with somebody already, and I'm like, wow, I don't think I could do that. I don't think I could do it. I have a question though.
Well, I did
Lorna.
it. Yeah.
A friend of mine
What's your
also
question?
had. Well, a friend of mine also had a near-death experience that he's shared with me, and one of the things that really stuck with him, that really really just it was the fact that he was in a light form, a spirit form, that there was no body, and I'm just wondering, did you felt like you were in light form? Like, do you have visuals? Because I was just curious, just not to compare stories, everybody's is different, but that was the one thing that touched his heart so much that he was like, we don't have bodies, where we're from. Like, it was very much a different experience.
Yeah, I would say that I actually had more of a sensory type experience, even though I've heard people say that they didn't have a body. To me, it felt like I was one with the blanket of love that was around me. Like, it just felt like every part of my being was just blanketed in love. Like, I wasn't afraid at all, even though it was just complete blackness. I didn't see anything. I didn't, have any sense of light beings or light. Like, I was seeing angels and stuff as a kid and experiences. So I'd had a lot of, spiritual type experiences that a lot of people don't have, but I wasn't having that in the near-death experience. It was really about love and loving myself and listening and having this dialogue and talking about, one of the things I was afraid of was dying. And I constantly battled with my emotions of not wanting to be on the planet, but not wanting to commit suicide. Like, I really had this, like, I don't like people. I like animals, I like nature, but most people I didn't trust and didn't like most parts of them. And so I was battling with that. How can you want to help people and want to heal people and you don't like them? Like, it was like this constant.
I don't mean to laugh, but I can relate. I can totally relate to that. Yeah. You're like, I just want to help you people. I don't know what I do. Yeah, I get it.
Shut up and let me heal you and go away. Right. So it was a very different attitude before that. And I will say that after that, the compassion for myself and others went 100 times up. Like, that love carried me through a lot of tough stuff. I was estranged from my dad and had been for about 10 years when that happened. And I reunited with my dad. And my last memory of my dad is him holding my daughter, and she's asleep on his shoulder. And he had come to meet, he hadn't met his kids. So he came to meet the kids, and he hadn't met my husband. And
making me grab tissues. I'm too sensitive today. Keep going.
Well, it was the worst and the best thing. Like, I told you the crap that happened as a kid. And my 20s were my Stepford wife years. The lights were on, nobody was home, and I was just hunting for help. And then when the near-death experience happened, it broke everything loose inside of me. And so everything, I couldn't stuff and hide things anymore. And all of my emotions were coming up to the surface. And my dad had called me after my daughter was born and wanted to reunite with me and with my brother and sister. I have several half siblings, but I have one full sister and one full brother. And all three of us were estranged from my dad. And they did not reunite with him before he passed. So my words to him were, you're not just going to show up and then disappear again. Like, if you're going to be part of my life, you're going to be part of my life. You can't just disappear. And he came and he met my kids. And as I said, my last memory is him holding my daughter, and she fell asleep on his shoulder. And then he was supposed to come for dinner and meet my husband. My husband was at work on November 1st, which, as you know, is also the Day of the Dead. And I got a call from my adopted grandpa, and he's the one that told me that my dad had died in a fire. So my dad was burning fire on the ranch, and there was a backdraft, and he died like suddenly in the fire. And there was, for me, major denial over his death. I thought my stepmother killed him off. The guy that pronounced him dead was sleeping with my stepmom. And so there was all sorts of like drama around all of that. But it made me dive in completely into healing myself. Like, that was like the final straw that broke it for me, and just everything broke loose. Before that, I would put up with a lot of stuff from my husband and do a lot of things, choose my battles. He was into end time prophecy in the church, and thought that the world was going to end with the Y2K thing. And so I just started learning how to work with his crazy and plan. Like, I made him buy food that we could use for the future. I made him buy board games and stuff for the kids to do, because there weren't going to be, computers and TVs, which I never liked TVs. Remember, I grew up without a TV.
Yeah.
So I just channeled his energy that way and worked with it, and became more and more of, I can't pretend anymore. And so finally I told him I wanted a divorce, and things got really, really ugly. And I started getting help from different counselors. And I actually became a truck driver to pay for massage school. And that was my mother's idea. It was a roundabout way, but she said I would be able to get to travel, and I would make good money to be able to pay for massage school. So I drove long haul for 2 years, and then I went to massage school in Asheville, North Carolina. And on the side, I started doing destiny card readings. I went through Robert's program and became a certified destiny card reader, and went to massage school. And really, massage school, even though I ended up doing energy work with people, it was really about healing for me. For me to have 10 people giving me a massage at the same time, because there were 10 of us in our class, and we would all take turns working on each other. That is the strangest feeling, to have 10 different people touching you and massaging you.
Yeah, it's freaking me out just thinking about it.
Yeah, it's making me uncomfortable thinking about it. Like,
So,
no, go away. I don't know.
That's
Definitely glad I didn't do massage school.
Yeah. Well, that's how I say that I earned my advanced course in forgiveness, because to me, the fact that I could have 10 people laying their hands on me and massaging me, and of course in massage school you're required to be level 2 Reiki practitioner, so you have to go through first and second level. I had a counselor before I went to massage school that did Reiki on me without touching me, and I could feel it. and had a really wonderful experience from it. So I was already a level 1, and then our massage school had us do the level 2. For me, for Reiki now, I think that Reiki for me, it was just a way for me to turn those emotions on and off in the faucet. That's what it helped me to do. But I actually think that it's like tarot cards and my rock. It's just a point of focus that we can use and a tool that we can use to tap into the gifts that we already have. And whether you're using the chakras to focus on the chakras, or you put, different energies in your own system, as long as it's consistent and works for you as a tool, I think it's beneficial. But I wouldn't, if I had to do it all over again, I wouldn't have wasted the money on Reiki.
Yeah, that's my thing about
I have a thing
Reiki.
with Reiki. Yeah, I do.
Yeah, I don't like this Friar will tell you.
Yes.
I don't like having a gatekeeper between you and divinity
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
healing. I definitely don't think you should have to pay money for it. Like if there's one thing besides like water and air that you shouldn't have to pay money for, it's to a connection to the divine. I think that's not
Absolutely.
it's not good. It's not good.
Well, that's why I have mine on a subscription model.
Oh, yeah, that's right. That's right.
There you go. I love it. So that all led up to my background, what I went through. I had the sexual trauma stuff, and then I had the near-death experience, and then my dad dying, and massage school. And I'm in Asheville, North Carolina, also known as Transformation Station, on the East Coast of the United States. And I was waiting to go into nursing school in Asheville. I thought I would do nursing school and then possibly go into physical therapy. After that was kind of the road. I was trying to take a long road because I also had kids at that time as well that were coming back and forth between their dad and I. And I was doing readings in the bars and the karaoke bars and the music bars in Asheville to pay for my partying. So I would just do readings, and people would buy me drinks and do my destiny card reading. And I met this woman that was part of the Rites of Passage Council, and I did a reading for her and just did a quick, bar reading. And she's like, well, I would like a more in-depth reading. Do you do those? And I said, I absolutely do. So I did a really in-depth reading with her, and she invited me to a women's retreat through the Rites of Passage. And the Rites of Passage Council is a nonprofit that was started by Cater Brown in Asheville, North Carolina. And he's studied many different modalities, but he is a licensed therapist, and he started studying spiritual things that weren't answering some of the things that were happening with therapy when he was doing therapy with people. And he eventually left traditional therapy because what he was doing with the spiritual aspect, the licensing boards didn't like what he was doing. And so he did eventually give up his license. And what he does is helps people go into the darkness and heal their issues. And it could be just life traumatic events. It could be the transitions in our life. And he's gone through teaching with indigenous tribes in both North America and in Africa with Malidoma Somé, with plant medicine. And I was very familiar with his work and the energy work that he did. So I was really interested in it. So I went ahead and I signed up for their in-depth program. And it's a year-long program where you go through sweat lodges, you have community, you have alone time where you go and you fast and you go on hikes, or kind of like a walkabout, if you think about the Australian walkabout. But they incorporate like probably, I would think, like Wiccan and Native American kind of beliefs into and weave it into the ceremonies that they do. The particular one that I went into was to deal with the issues with the sexual stuff from the past. And I really wasn't dealing with my dad's death at that point. It was more the emotional stuff still, and what was going on with my kids and my husband, my first husband. And I had some absolutely phenomenal experiences. I would still recommend anybody that needs to go into some really in-depth counseling and needs a community support around them, is afraid of maybe going into the emotional stuff and not having community around them, like they're afraid to do that. I recommend Cater's group. They still do work. They had the Helene hurricane that happened. I was actually supposed to go pet sit there right before that happened, and it got canceled. So I would have been up in North Carolina when that happened, and instead was on the bus headed to Oregon when all of that happened. But they did workshops for free for the first responders that dealt with all of the death and pulling people out of the rubbish and everything from the devastation that happened from Hurricane Helene. But for me personally, the very first time I did the sweat lodge was like I'd come home. Like it was the first time I felt home on the planet. And, they tell you, they teach you a little about the sweat lodge and make sure you're hydrated and everything. And if you don't know what the sweat lodge is, they use rocks to basically turn a little like hut into a sauna. They have this fire that they burn, and then they heat up the rocks, and then they put the rocks in this little hut that's made with branches or with leaves that's over this structure, and there's a hole, and they put the rocks in the hole, and then there's someone who's in charge of pouring the water. And you'll see like they have little prayer ties inside that have tobacco in them, and they do their prayers and they sing chants, and they have rounds. So you do a round of amount of time where they're pouring the water, and then you get out, you take a break, and then you come back in and you do a round. And Native Americans have different philosophies about it. Different tribes have different philosophies as well about it. But a lot of them, what they used it for was what they call dying the good death. So, getting yourself ready as if you're going to die, and taking care of any unfinished business before you leave this plane. And they also used it for praying and connecting with the ancestors. The rocks are considered the bones of the ancestors, and grandmother and grandfather and all your relations. So my very first experience, they told me, it's probably going to get too hot. I wore a swimsuit, and they were like, don't feel bad if you can't make it. And they had to kick me out at the end. It felt so good, and I just felt so wonderful. And I was having memories of my near-death experience. And when I looked into the fire, like you could look out the door and see the fire outside, I kept seeing people in the fire. My ancestors were talking to me, and my guides were talking to me. And it was just absolutely wonderful. And then later, I went through the Vision Quest. They have a 9-day encampment that they have you prepare for. You do a medicine walk a month before you do the Vision Quest, where you fast and you go and you walk and you spend time alone, and ask your guides what you're supposed to be learning. And you learn from nature and the animals and the elements. And when I did my encampment, I experienced my very first hurricane. They have where you do the sweat lodge in the circle, and then you go off for 3 days and you fast and pray, and you go through your own ceremony. And you have, the way that they do it for safety is you have a rock buddy. So you leave a message at a rock. So you can leave flowers or something at this designated spot between you and your buddy. And one of you chooses the morning, the other one chooses the afternoon, so that you don't see each other. So that's how they give you that time where you're all by yourself and you don't have any action in the interaction with other people. And you leave messages and stuff so that you know that you're okay. And if your rock buddy doesn't show up, you're supposed to go to base camp and go back to base camp and get help. And then at base camp, there are elders around the fire holding the fire while you're off on your vision quest. And while I was on my vision quest, we had a hurricane, and I just thought it was the most intense, beautiful rainstorm I'd ever seen. And I went to leave my message for my rock buddy, and there was no message from my rock buddy. Like, he hadn't left anything. And I was concerned. And so I just waited and like, well, what do I do? And I just sat there and I was like, something's wrong. I need to go to base camp. So I went to base camp, and turned out he was fine. He was a city boy, and he had built his place at where he got rained out from all the rain. So he ended up getting rained out and woke up with a snake in his sleeping bag with him, and decided that wasn't where he wanted to be.
He was trying to get warm.
Well, that's the thing. It was really warm. The rain was really warm. I was never cold, just wet. It was like every single party, it was wet. There was just no dry. It was just totally soaked. But long story long, when I came back to the encampment and we did our final circle, when I was in the circle, I had some pretty intense experiences when I went back into the sweat lodge, and I saw this woman. This time in the fire, I saw a woman burning at the stake, and was told that I was a bridge for my ancestors to bring the past forward and to heal myself. And as I healed myself, I would be healing future generations and would be healing the past. And part of that would be speaking our truth and speaking it with discernment and wisdom, but also knowing that we had paid a price in the past. And whether that was actually my, actual ancestor or metaphorically, to me, it doesn't matter, because that information and the information that I got when I had my near-death experience, all of it benefited me. There was none of the advice that was given to me, even though it seemed unorthodox, never hurt me. It always helped me, always made me feel better. And I've always felt like, well, if my brain came up with that, then my brain was helping me because it gave me good information. But I've seen so many different things and had so many different experiences. I told you about just having people manifest, and then disappear. And I've had angelic experiences like that as well, where somebody rescued me and then they were just gone. And usually there's other people that see them as well. So it's not just me seeing them, because I wondered about schizophrenia and things like that as a kid, because of seeing these people walking around. But it was like a thing of other people seeing them as well. And I shared on one of our talks on Sunday morning, that we'd done a seance to try to talk to this spirit that kept showing up at the house that I was restoring in Asheville. And I didn't give the backstory on that, but I was carpooling to work and everybody kept seeing this woman on my porch, and I never saw her. And in this house that I was restoring, I had my massage room set up, and people would come in and they were like, they didn't want to leave. They were like, oh, this house has such good energy and it just feels so wonderful. And I found out in doing history on the house that the house was built for this woman, and she died before the house was finished being built. A doctor built the house for his fiance, and she died before they got married. And there's all sorts of lore about the house. And as I said, everybody kept saying, well, you know, they thought they saw me on the porch, and I had donated my hair. I had shaved my head and donated my hair. And so I wore wigs after that because it's really cold when you shave your head. So I started wearing wigs. And so they just thought that it was me wearing a different wig. And I was like, no, I wasn't outside at that time. And they kept seeing me either outside on the porch or upstairs on the balcony up above. And so that was why we had done the seance. I was dating somebody who was into filming supernatural stuff, kind of a ghost hunter type person. And I saw this man in the kitchen, and they saw him too. And I thought somebody had broke into my house, and I chased him and yelled at him to get out of my house. And I chased him into the basement, and I thought I had cornered him, and he disappeared. And it wasn't until he disappeared that I realized I was chasing somebody that wasn't from this plane. I don't know what he was. I don't like to say ghost or spirit because I'm really not sure about the whole quantum thing and portals and whatnot. But that was, after that, I told Bella, I'm fine with not seeing you. I am not doing this again. That was before I had done all the vision work. That was before I'd actually graduated from massage school. But that whole area, there's just a lot of spiritual things like that not only I've had, but a lot of other people have had. So that area is kind of known as Transformation Station. But when I was actually doing my encampment and vision quest time, I kept seeing a lot of people again, like that came up even more in my life again, where it had kind of stopped. For the early part of my 20s, that didn't really happen very much. So did I answer some of the questions?
Yeah, Lorna, do you consider yourself like a medium? Do spirits come through and talk when you do your readings, or do you just do them like you let the energy just work through you?
I would say that I'm a medium, but not in the traditional sense. The term they use is hollow bone. I just feel that if I get out of the way, that like the better that I get out of the way, I'm just channeling the information. So more of a channel than a medium, in that I don't feel like I'm speaking specifically for somebody. Like if I try to speak for somebody, then it seems to almost block it. Whereas if I just go, I do my own prayers. I do some ancient prayers that I know, just because I believe that there's a mass consciousness that comes with prayers as well. And so I pray prayers that are in alignment with my beliefs before I do a reading with somebody, whether I do energy work or whether it's an actual, if I'm just looking at their energy or trying to ask questions for them. And then I speak to my guides to speak to their guides, that I only get information that's going to be helpful for them, that they need to know, that I need to know. Like I don't want to read mail that's not useful information. It's like,
absolutely. No,
I totally agree. About the rape or murder or something like this, if it doesn't have some purpose to help them. And I had to do that just because I'm super sensitive and picking up, and I had to learn how to not carry that stuff around. Like I would pick up, like the biggest example, I'm definitely an empath, and I pick up people's emotions and feelings. And the way I describe it is like if you had radio stations, like the satellite radio stations, Sirius, and you had all of them on all at once. That's what it's like when I go in public. If I don't do self-care before I go in public, like if I don't turn my dial's down. I hear everything and I pick up everybody's emotions. And then I have my own in the mix. So
Yeah,
it's
I
really
know.
important.
I definitely feel that. I get heavily medicated before I have to go do anything peopling. So that's how I deal with it. I'm like, I need to be in my bubble. I need to just. Yeah, absolutely, definitely.
Meditation is the meditating. That's my. I had a mentor, and she's like, you know, if you're having a stressful life and you don't have time, that's when you need to meditate even more. Like it's really is more important than food and water for me at this phase in my life. It's if I take care of things energetically first before I go out, then whatever happens in the world doesn't faze me as much as it would if I didn't do that. So I mentioned before, Reiki helped me, learn how to turn the faucet on and off and turn the dial down. Now I have other things that I use and tools, but even still, like I'm going through a phase in my life right now. I'm in my Saturn return right now, and I feel not as grounded. So I do things that I know that are going to bring me in the physical and make me feel things to ground my energy. So I still have to, it's constant work for me to stay grounded on this plane. I feel I could go on a mountaintop and never see another person again. And
yes,
happy.
I feel that.
But
I do. I feel that.
I also know I'm not supposed to do that. and people like Abby, I did a reading with Abby and she's like confirmed I'm not supposed to do that. So that's why I'm talking about you.
Yeah. The pull is strong though, and I relate to that. I'm not that far from Siberia, and you have no idea how easy it would be to just go and just never come back, right? I think, honestly, if I didn't have my daughter, if I didn't have to keep her close to the opportunities, good schools and activities and whatnot, I probably already would have checked out, you guys. But I mean, I do love helping people and stuff, but man, like it was easy to check out before living in the country in Michigan and just like out in the middle of nowhere. But here, you could for sure just disappear.
Yeah.
Not because of the fairies. I mean, like because you decide.
Yeah. I'm at the phase where my kids are grown and, I could just disappear. And so the irony that I'm sitting here with you on the internet talking about all of this stuff right now is I find it's funny. Just because, part of me and just, would love to just go hang out. I'm pet sitting right now with bunnies. I just go hang out with the bunnies. Like that's my ideal Christmas. go play with the rabbits and go play with the animals. But
I think the internet's a good medium. I think it's nice because you get to reach people, but then if you're like very clairsentient or you feel people in your space, you don't have to deal with that. So I know like I did in-person readings. If you guys don't know out there, I worked as a psychic for many years. And it sucked the life out of me, but the worst ones were having to go do fairs, like psychic fairs, and go to do live events. And it's just, you're just being bombarded by all kinds of energy. And I mean, it takes like a week to recover, like a full week. It sucks. So I definitely like doing virtual work. And even though, yes, COVID sucked and I'm not saying anything good about it, but if there's one good thing that came out of it, it's that people learned how to deal with like virtual life. Which nobody knew, but like I knew how to do it before because I had to, but people didn't know where I was. I talked to them over the phone because they didn't understand Zoom. And if I told them I was in Russia, they're like, well, how do I call you? I'm like, I'm talking on the phone to you right now. Like, we're going to figure it out. It's not a big deal. But yeah, it was just like people they didn't understand how that was possible, that we could have a conversation. My grandma, okay, so in her defense, she's 94. But she'll be like, well, I better let you go. This is your phone call. I'm like, no, Grandma, it's free. Like, it's the internet. I'm telling you on the internet. She still doesn't get it. She thinks it's like long distance calls to Europe in the 80s.
That's
what was
cute.
that? Like
Yeah.
$40 a minute or something? It was crazy.
Yeah. Oh my God, they traumatized us. Yeah, with fees.
Yeah, call after 7. It's cheaper.
Yeah. I remember that. I used to dial 1-800-COLLECT and be like, call me right back.
We got my mom on WhatsApp on her tablet when I was in Spain, and she told me when they were there when I was born, that they were allowed to call the States once a year, that the military paid for them to call their family on Christmas. And it was really, really expensive. So,
Yes.
yeah.
Thank you, technology. I love
I
technology.
do. Yeah, I love the internet. I like doing a lot of my readings. I discovered I like to record them because I have too much of a sensitivity issue that I haven't gotten a grip on. And I actually just finished a reading, and I still have, like, I'll get these weird psychic pings. Like, I have this song now stuck in my head. Like, I just saw, like, and I just hear this song, and it's a cool song. I mean, but I'm like, this is this person. This is this person. And it just didn't go away. And yeah. Well, now I'm not going to sing it because I totally am going to get it stuck in my head, but it's Fergie, Glamorous, with Ludacris going, if you ain't got no money, take your broke ass home. I was like, oh my God, this is so cool. Like, so it was a jam. Like, it's cool reading, cool person, everything was cool about it. But I'm all like singing G-L-A, like singing her freaking Glamorous song. It's just ridiculous.
Having your own spiritual karaoke session.
Yeah. And it took like a day to like really ground and get just clear those energies and so yeah, I get the whole thing about being like overly sensitive, finding the right tools, finding the right way to do your thing without it having that hangover.
You talked about medicating. When I was doing the readings in the bars, that was part of why.
Dude, yeah, I drank a lot. Yeah, I was always around. But I was doing like psychic readings, though. I was just like picking stuff up and. I met a lot of cool people, right?
Yeah,
I miss the socializing, but I do miss the socializing, but I definitely feel a lot better not drinking anymore. But it is Wisconsin, so.
I'm a Lyft driver, and so I would use that as the excuse to not drinking. So I would just go to different karaoke bars, take my lunch break, and I was like, no, I'm the designated driver, or have that fun that way.
You guys, you good for taking a look at the sky here?
Yeah.
We all good? We all set on that?
Yeah.
All right. While I'm doing this, I can't monitor the chat and stuff. So you guys in the chat, you guys are on fire today. Thanks for joining us. Please feel free to put all of your questions and comments and stuff in there. If you have any questions about I'm going to take a look at the upcoming week is what I always say, but then I end up talking about some of these slower moving planets. They're going to affect us for a longer period of time because they move slower, obviously. So if there's anything in like the next whenever coming up that you want me to take a look at, let me know. As you can see, the sun is right here in Sagittarius, conjunct with the galactic center. Now, I'll call this conjunct. I think there's basically like a week-long period where we have the sun's conjunction here. But this goes for everyone. And by the way, if you don't already know, if you're like new to the channel, you haven't figured it out, I do Sumerian astrology, okay, you guys? So this has nothing to do with the classical system. I know it's confusing to look at me, but I do not do Vedic astrology. So this is all Mesopotamian pre-classical astrology. So if it sounds a little bit different, that's what's going on. So in Mesopotamia, the sun was Utu or Shamash. And if you look him up, they're going to tell you he was a god of law and justice. But if you actually read his myths, he's not doing anything related to law or justice. There's like a few parts where he's judging the dead, but so does the moon, so does Nergal. Everybody judges somebody at some at some time in history. But really what he does is he protects, he guides, he rescues people in need. So the sun is basically, the way I like to talk about it, it's how you operate as a light for others in the world, where you are a guide. And really, this is why this hangs out after you die, and people like, this is what they remember about you, your general sun sign. So here, this relates to everyone. Obviously, we're doing a general forecast. It's 8 billion people, so it's not going to be super specific. But while the sun is over here, we're tapping into this cosmic energy from the galactic center. And pretty much any ancient culture that you can think of, they all looked at this portion of the sky and they knew something significant that was going on spiritually. So I like to talk about this portion of the sky as though it is a macrocosmic representation of our crown chakra, where we're kind of pulling everything in, like the mass amounts of our spiritual or cosmic information, kind of where you connect to God, your ancestors, angels, the universal consciousness. I don't care what you call it, wherever, however you're connecting to those things. So this tunes everybody's intuition into like it puts it on another level. Now, culturally, at this time in human history, in the West in particular, this is a time of merrymaking and, you know, like getting together with family and celebrating. So we might not all be, a lot of people are just busy shopping. Here in Russia, it's crazy. You don't go to the store right now because there's a week of just nonstop shopping. Our big day's on New Year's. So that's going to be next week when we're here, but where's I going? I derailed you guys. Oh yeah. So you might not notice all of the intuition, but if you can meditate, if you can calm down, if you can just tune yourself right in, you should be getting some stellar information. Now, if I did, by the way, you guys, I did meditate today for like, it was one of the first times. I know it's a really big deal. I have not been meditating. I've been very busy. It was crazy for me. Now I'm dealing with my solar return because this is basically right in my wheelhouse here for my birthday. But it usually takes me a good 20 minutes to get into it, especially if it's been a while since I meditated. And I legit was just right there. So congratulations to me, but also congratulations to you guys if you can meditate during this time. So definitely do that. Okay. Now, as the sun starts to go into Sagittarius, this was Pesel. He was the chief ancestor. He was also synonymous with Ninurta, a god of basically being awesome at everything. Okay. And the god embodied in Saturn. So if anybody tells you Saturn's bad, it's Satan, it's, you know, somehow like the Lord of the Rings, Sauron, or whatever goofy stuff that they're telling you, it's not true, you guys. Saturn is the planet of success, and Sagittarius is the sign of success. So anybody, while the sun's going in here, this is giving everybody the perfect opportunity, and this is the whole month, right? This is giving everyone the perfect opportunity to just master whatever it is that you're trying to tackle, all right? Be the warrior, be the adventurer, take some risks, but not crazy risks, like intelligent, responsible risks, like risk going to the gym, okay? Risk changing your diet and, like, you know, doing something healthy for yourself, or maybe take some risks and meditate. Jump on our, you know, Sunday call. That would be a good risk to take too. But basically just getting stuff done during this time is going to be much easier. Again, if your culture or your religious stuff going on and it's like you're just partying for the next 2 weeks, obviously maybe not so much, but astrologically you have this going on for you. Now Venus is here in the fish side of Capricorn. I know we said we were talking in the chat here, stand by, I'm roasting, yes, that some of you have strong Capricorn. Lorna definitely has strong Capricorn. So there's a few things going on. This creature right here, this goatfish, originally was a goddess known as Tashmetu, and she was called the granter of requests or the divine doctress, and she was beseeched for healing and blessings, and she was just awesome. Okay, and some, without going into all the mythology, she and her counterpart Bao, which was her name, they were basically synonymous, as were Pesel and Ninurta. They were both married, so there is a connection between these two, being like the husband and the wife figure. But she was very feminine, very loving and nurturing. She had a connection to animals. I think, was it Bao, or I think it was Tashmetu, because I get them confused too. It had some rules about if you see animals fighting on the street, like you were supposed to break it up. That's like one of her things. So, or bury one. If you see like a dead carcass, you're supposed to bury it. So lots of just love and nurturing. And if you think about it, if you live in a country where, you know, there's a lot of goats and sheep and that type of thing, we get lots of delicious, healthy foods from this animal too. And if you've ever had goats, I had dairy goats, so I can vouch for this if you just want to take my word for it. Goats are awesome. They are not stubborn. I still just to this day don't understand. They're not stubborn. Yes, they headbutt each other when they're playing, or like the little ones, or if they're protecting themselves, or obviously if it's mating season, right? That's what they do. But they're not stubborn and mean. There's none of this cold, calculating nature. It's all just love and passion. Goats in particular are also very intelligent. We get some of the intelligent stuff coming over on this side of Aquarius in particular. This is the fish side. All fish were related to Enki in both Nanshe and Anunatum. So there's kind of like overlapping meaning in the fish side of Capricorn as well as Aquarius and Pisces. So the fish side is much more intuitive. It's also very innovative, and it's basically functioning on like another level. Okay. And you guys out there with either Aquarius, Pisces, or this part of Capricorn, you probably know what I'm talking about. It's the nice union between the left and the right brain. Now, Venus's placement here, and she's basically stationary, not exactly, but just about. Venus is the most empathic of all of the planets. I like to summarize this as kind of being the heart, and that can either be just pure bliss or pure despair, rage, like the really, really intense higher level emotions, which are not always pleasant, obviously. But here, this is a really beautiful placement of Venus. She's much softer, but she's more... she's a little bit more on the magical side here. She starts to get into like what would we call that? Kind of that stereotypical new agey type of vibe. Let's bust out our crystals and tarot cards and whatnot. Which I don't lump astrology into that category, guys, just so you know, but that's a different conversation. But this is a great time for miraculous healing, self-healing. If you got skills like Lorna, you're going to be able to heal other people that much better. But she's right in here. So definitely don't be afraid. If you are very empathic, though, this might intensify some of those empathic connections. I would say don't run from it. Don't hide from it. Just allow yourself to love and feel. Like this is a time to let these emotions come out and deal with them as opposed to trying to suppress or control them. And I don't think you're going to have much choice in the matter anyways. Let's see. Saturn's still here in Aquarius, which is... it's good. Nothing bad about it. It's just they're in Aquarius. I won't go into that. I talk about that a lot. Same thing. Jupiter still hanging out here in the Hyades. It is getting a little bit closer to the bull's jaw here, or Aldebaran, which was the crown of Anu, as they called it. And Anu was the supreme celestial deity, kind of like take a pick of a paternal creator deity, and that's basically what we're looking at. So the closer Jupiter gets here, that gives you, if you have a strong Jupiter or you're like tuned into your own personal power, this gives you, it kind of puts you into the universal or cosmic flow when you step into this role, when you allow yourself to be creative, maybe take some risks, go on adventures, be a little bit more romantic, but definitely like be more in a position of power, especially with this being a very creative portion of the sky. If you're learning anything new, or if you are literally working on some creative projects, like this is the time. Okay. What else we got? Mars still hanging out in Capricorn. It's going to be retrograde, I think, till like mid-March, if I'm not mistaken. Doesn't matter. This is his portion of the sky. He's the god of the underworld, as well as war, death, and pestilence. He's not a bad god, you guys. Somebody had to be the god of those things. But he is our sensitivity planet. He is our where Venus is like higher emotion. Mars is kind of like lower day-to-day, more base emotions, pleasure, pain, stub your toe, it hurts, eat some ice cream, tastes delicious, more of that stuff. But it's also our sensitivity, not always in a good way. So yeah, that's good if you're like connecting to another person, you're having like, even everybody who's listening right now, or anybody who's virtually connecting with us right now, we're having some sort of interpersonal exchange, right? It's not super intense. We can all go our separate ways probably, and life will go on, but it's still there. We're still having it. And that's what's going on now. If you're very porous or energetically, this can be a really intense placement. But Mars is right at home in Cancer. This was the entrance point to the underworld, and he was the god of the underworld. So this is like him being on his throne. So on the one hand, it can make people a little bit more introverted, maybe more introspective. You want to kind of go crawl into a hole somewhere and hide a little bit. And if you're already like an overthinker, hyper analyzer, this can kick some of that into another level too. So that's not always great. But if you're real with yourself, if you know who you are, you know what you're trying to achieve in life, this is actually a really powerful placement, because it allows you to level up and go to the next place where you already, like you've been planning, you have an idea of what you want to do. Like this is going to set things in motion and allow you to actually make that stuff happen. So long as you're managing your stress, you're not like just a toxic mess in your relationship or your body or whatever. We're going to skip the moon because it's going to whip around here over the next month. And, it's just not as much fun to go through all of them because we will be here a little bit longer. Mercury is still conjunct with Antares. And also basically stationary here, hanging about. This side of Ophiuchus is very much related to healing of the emotions, or just indirect type of healing, as opposed to like hands-on massage therapy, right? This is more facilitating healing, something like Friar does with discount code code Marduk50.
Yes.
This is definitely the type of thing that's going on over here on the side of the scorpion. So this scorpion was all about healing, as was Ophiuchus, and in some cases this was Zababa, and that was like her husband. So this was a goddess Ashada, and it's a whole thing. I won't bore you with it. If you want that information, you can definitely find it in my 15-hour video course on ancient astrology. You're welcome to check that out. It's on my website and on my Etsy store. Okay, so where was I going with this? Oh, yeah. So Mercury, very similar to the current meaning of Mercury, except that this was associated with water in the Mesopotamian system, and thus it was associated with creativity and fertility. So much more curious, more powerful, I think, than the modern interpretation of Mercury. But this placement conjunct with Antares means that somebody like Friar, who is in a position to facilitate healing indirectly, right? Like counseling, consulting, coaching, you work, even if you guys, you're working with like a company or something, even if it's just your family members, whoever, it doesn't have to be in your career, but it allows you to read your room a little bit, really tune in and listen to the needs of the people around you. Now, if the people around you are insane, that's not great, because now you're just, sucking up all of their crazy. But hopefully this is allowing you to, what do we want to say? Manage these relationships, either personally or professionally, a little bit better, and really get to the root of what they need. And maybe you get something out of it too. Should be a good learning opportunity for you. So I'll shut up now. Nikki, what do you have? Do you have anything for us today?
Yeah. I wanted to talk about, a few things I wrote down, see if I can stay organized. But, Saturn, we have had him going back and forth, retrograde and forward in Aquarius, and now he's done. Like, he's got like everything he needs. He's going to be moving into the future here. And, it's just kind of like with him going forward, it's like he's saying, hey, I know the future. I set the stage. I know the players here. I'm moving forward. This is what we're going to do. And with that square to Jupiter, I am seeing it as like, looking at how we can use our past beliefs, how we can use our past connections, and ideas and things that we know to build on a future foundation. Venus, and this is just, I'm just kind of going off of what I'm like seeing too out there in the public eye. Venus has really been, I think, encouraging us to review a lot of the things that have to do with our foundations. And it's been quite emotional for a lot of different people. That's why Capricorn is such an amazingly sensitive constellation. A lot of people are looking at what they value, why they love what they love, who are they loyal to, and what are they loyal to. And that could be family, that could be government systems. I mean, it's kind of across the board right now. A lot of people are doing a lot of reviewing. Let's see, what else? Like Mars, he is our little soldier, isn't he? And I don't feel like he's ever not doing anything. And I'd been thinking about him and the just a current situation. I mean, and I feel like with him moving backwards into Gemini, he's going and looking through all the intelligence. He's gathering intelligence. He's figuring out the secrets. Where is this? Where is that? How do I feel about this? Making those connections. So that when he's in Gemini and he moves forward, there can be some progress going on. With that opposition to Pluto, okay, like I've heard a lot of people say it's like a power move, it's this and that, but I have felt and seen more people feel actually pretty powerless to act on the things that they want to act on. There's a lot of hesitation. There's a lot of do I know what I know? Can I trust what I feel? Type of stuff. And I just feel like it's kind of one of those times where it's going to, Mars is going to dig a lot of skeletons out of the closet. things that we're going to have to face on a personal level and probably on a very collective level. Just my thoughts. I think that's all I really have. I mean, I probably have said this before and I've said it to death, but that's, we're restructuring, we're rebuilding, not only our own lives and the things that we have going on personally, but if you look at the country, we've got a lot of changes going on, and we have a lot of things that will be disclosed in the future. So
they need to tell us about the aliens already. Like, just be done with it.
The glowing jellyfish in the sky. It's kind of a little odd.
That was obviously
we made that.
That was the flying spaghetti monster. So
yeah,
have to be reverent. Ramen. He boiled for your sins.
I love it. I love that every planet that has gone through the galactic center, it to me, it has really felt as if the galactic center has like renewed the energy of that planet, as if it's been born again, like a rebirth center. When it finally passed, the sun finally was like passing through, like, because the trip through Scorpio, you guys, for me was fucking hell on Earth. Like, I swear to God. And as soon as the sun like reached a certain point, like just in the galactic center, as if all of that lifted, the optimism was there, the visions of a better future, better things to come. Like it definitely, I could feel it. So I think we'll get the same thing out of Mercury. When Mercury passes through, we're likely going to get a lot of really cool insights, a lot of really cool downloads, and a new like perspective on consciousness, basically everything.
Do you think that's when we're going to get our alien disclosure? You guys,
it's a possibility.
I'm to the point where I don't even care if they're invading. I don't think they are, but I don't care if they're invading and, gonna like totally take over the earth or something, like horror movie style. I just want it to already happen. Just let's get it over with and let's move forward and quit this nonsense where we're just pretending that they're not there and we don't know what's going on. I'm just tired of it.
And that's the really scary part, is that there's no reaction. They're not reacting. And that's why I'm like, okay, well, maybe this is an intelligence gathering time. Maybe we need to really, like, what worked in the past, what didn't work, we need to get our shit together really fast, really quick here, because I think it's going to get heavy, and I think it's going to freak a lot of people out. I don't think you should be freaked out, but it's going to shake it up, man. I mean, it's not going to be your typical Earth anymore, where your biggest concern is, am I gonna get to McDonald's breakfast in time? Or all that shit's gonna go away, possibly. But I don't know. I mean, we'll see, right? I'm optimistic, and I kind of always knew this was gonna happen, and I've had readers tell me about it, and I'm like, well, whatever. And now that I'm seeing it, I'm like, okay. It's kind of freaking me out a little bit, but not in a bad way, not in a bad way, but I'm like, oh wow, holy shit. Well, maybe what else did I get that was real? That's like, I gotta start writing this shit down, guys. Yeah. But that stuff right there, that disclosure stuff, I would love for us to do a show on it, because I know there's lots of people who've had experiences. I've talked to people who've actually had experiences where they tell me that they had been abducted, and they don't like to tell me this. Okay, they're not like, oh my God, let me tell you this cool story. They're like, something fucking happened to me. I'm fucking scared. And they're white collar people. They have, 6-figure jobs. They're rooted in reality at all times. And they've had experiences that they can't explain. So there's something to that. So, but that, fairy thing, fae thing, how do we know it's not alien abductions and they're just trying to blame the fae?
Well, I suspect that the at least some of the aliens and fairies and stuff are like this. Some of them are the same, but I'm not. I don't really. It's too big of a conversation. We'd be
Abby,
here all night.
oh my God, there was a story I saw about these hikers in Russia. Have you heard that story? You've seen that story,
Dyatlov's
right?
Pass?
Yeah, where they all end up like.
Yeah, we live close to there. Yeah.
Yeah.
To the mountain of death. Yeah, Andre won't let
great.
me go.
Oh,
He's like, no,
yeah.
yeah, he's like, you can't go there. I'm like, no, I'm gonna go. He's like, no, you absolutely cannot. I'm like, it's fine. People hike there. But he's like, no, it's the mountain of death. They don't mess around. I told you guys, like people snatch your hair standing in line at the grocery store and like take it to their shaman and do stuff to you. It's no joke. We got this other place too. It's really cool. It's called Arkaim. It's supposed there was an echo that freaked me out for a second. I got a jump scare.
She just popped back on.
Yeah. It's supposedly as old as Stonehenge at a minimum. Like that's the Western thought, but the Russians say it's like 10,000 years old. So who knows for sure? But it's really cool. But apparently all the shamans and the witches and the whoever, they all go out there and do stuff. And Andre won't let me go. He's like, no, you can't. They do crazy magic and spells. I'm like, have you met me?
Right.
Right. What is going on? Like, why can't I go of all people? But he's superstitious and paranoid.
You guys superpowered.
Yeah. But let me get to some there. You guys were like on fire in the chat here. So I'm trying to, let me see what do we have. Blue Bedouin said, I'm trying to get a job soonish, bad thing or the best timing. Or well, I haven't seen your chart individually, but anytime the sun is in Sagittarius, if you put the work in, you will get the results. So if you wanna make it happen, this is a great time to do it. You guys can keep talking while I look for more comments, but I'm probably gonna pop in with more because I have to go through these now.
We are 5 minutes away from the top of the hour.
Yes.
This hour brought to you by Sidereal Systems, who reminds you to update your Skynet today.
Yeah, why are you trying to make AI take over the world, Friar?
I love it.
Well, I got such a nice email from Mr. Dyson. I thought I should let everybody know. And you're right, Abby. I do have the ability to Anuna tune into people's concerns.
Ooh, good one.
Ooh, I love that. Yeah. I love it.
Yeah.
Anuna tune. Yeah, I love that. Stop.
Next time we do the chat, I did finally figure out how to connect StreamYard to YouTube, and I say I figured it out. It just randomly happened. I tried it before for like a day or two and it didn't work, and then one day I tried it again and it worked. So next time we'll be able to pop your comments up on the chat, like if Friar wants to babysit the chat for me, we can probably between the two of us be able to pop some of these things up as we go, like questions about the upcoming stuff. I think that's the only one
you guys, I really wanted to find this clip from this astrologer that I follow, River of Stars Astrology. And this astrologer, he was incredible, and I couldn't find the video. Maybe it was a post or something that he said, and I swear he was talking about the stars of Pegasus and flying machines and flying stuff. And I was trying so hard to find it, and I will try to find it for our next show, but I swear he like totally called this flying machine stuff. But I don't know for sure. I don't know if my memory is being weird with me and I'm not like quite remembering exactly everything and in the context. So if I do find what he had said, I will share it because it was really deep and really good, and really awesome.
Well, the square of Pegasus is related to, this was the field in Mesopotamia, and it was also called the Abzu. So if you guys remember from Mesopotamian history, which I know you don't, the Abzu was the freshwater abyss that existed supposedly underground, although again, I don't think that's really what they thought was going on, or it wasn't just that. It was also very, very clearly a reference to this place in the sky. The Abzu was in Babylon. That was the name of, so there was Tiamat, which we see in the figure of Ketis, and there was the Abzu, and she was the feminine principle and he was the masculine, and they coalesced to create, they were like the stuff of the cosmos, masculine and feminine. They came together to create the first race of gods. Now they're both slain, of course, but the Abzu in particular, he was relegated to like this portion of the sky in the square of Pegasus. So that portion in the middle relates to, and the words Abzu basically mean like a storehouse of wisdom. Zu means knowledge, wisdom. There's other meanings that we could go into too, but basically it's where all the technology and information and like the advancements that we would be looking for, one of the places they would come from. It was the home of Enki, where he who was also the god of wisdom and knowledge. So all of our scientific what's the word? I'm gonna help you guys brains fried. Innovations. There we go.
Okay.
Like they're being spurred forward in that whole section of the sky. It's not just in Aquarius. There's a lot going on with Pisces too. I really think, and I've talked about this before, next week, you guys, I'm going to do a 1-year forecast, probably for the world at large. I may focus a little bit more on, you know, the United States and whatnot, just because most of our people are probably watching from there. But I think that the transition of Saturn into Pisces is actually going to be really good. I think people are going to start to focus, even though technology it's still like we're locked in. We're basically cyborgs now, you guys. Just you might you might not have the chip inside your head yet, but you just carry your chip in your pocket or in your hand all day. But everybody's like pretty tuned into it, you know. But I think when Saturn starts to go into Pisces, a lot of people are going to start pulling away from that and going more to like deeper spiritual connection, more like real human connections with each other, with nature, with animals, whatever. And we're going to find a nice balance. Whereas over the last 30 years, in particular, and that's more of the Plutonian cycle, but you know, like it's been heavily focusing on you know, just like more and more technology. But I don't know, we'll talk about that next week, so you guys definitely you know, jump on with us. Lorna, it's been great to have you. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, thank you for coming on and sharing. Yes, I appreciate it.
Anybody out there have any final questions? Friar, you've been awfully quiet. Did you have anything?
No, I'm good.
You're like, nope, I'm all straight here.
I'm golden.
All right. All right. Well, thanks again, everybody. By the way, I got to remember, you guys, I got to get better at this with these new little things that we have in the chat. If you have any show ideas for us, because we're not here to talk in a vacuum and, you know, like just talk to ourselves. I mean, we do that on Sundays. So if there's anything, if you guys have any topics or anything, like let us know. It'd be cool too. If you guys are watching the replay, there might not be enough time to pop it in the chat now, but if you guys are watching the replay, let us know what you liked best about today's show, because we're only trying to make it better, and we love you all, and we're excited to be here. And we're glad that you stuck it out with us today. And I just hope everybody has an awesome Christmas or Hanukkah. Chanukah? I know it's not Chanukah, but
okay.
So
Hanukkah.
Yeah. All right. Well, I guess we can let you guys go.
Yeah.